I know I'm going to get torn apart for this, and honestly, I probably deserve it. But I'm not posting this for sympathy. I'm posting because sometimes, telling the truth is the only way forward. This all started ending on a Thursday. The kind of grey, drizzly morning that clings to your skin and makes everything feel heavier. I was sitting in the back corner of a quiet cafe, halfway through an overpriced matcha latte I didn't even want, waiting for the man I was about to break things off with. His name was Callum. We'd been seeing each other for 6 months. I was married the whole time. My husband, ex-husband now, his name is James. He's kind, thoughtful. The kind of man who makes you coffee exactly the way you like it without being asked. Who remembers your co-workers' names? Who actually listens? You're probably wondering how I could betray someone like that. I ask myself the same thing more than I care to admit. But this isn't a story where I justify it. There's no excuse, no sob story. Just some real, messy truth. It didn't start with fireworks. It started with loneliness. The quiet kind. The kind that shows up even when someone is lying next to you at night. James worked long hours, he's a trauma nurse, and he'd come home spent. I'd ask about his day, and he'd mumble something about someone coding or a kid with a broken arm, then fall asleep on the couch before dinner. I missed being seen. And then came Callum. I met him through a friend at a launch event. He worked in marketing, sharp suits and confident smiles. The first time he touched my arm during a joke, I felt my body wake up in a way it hadn't in months. I told myself it was harmless. It wasn't. It turned into text messages, late-night calls, meetings during yoga class and weekend conferences I wasn't really attending. And I hated who I was becoming. I wasn't in love with Callum. He was exciting, yes. But it wasn't real. Just a mirror showing me what I thought I needed. I had decided that morning would be our last meeting. I was going to end it. Clean break. No drama. I even rehearsed the words in the car. This was a mistake. I need to make things right with James. I'm sorry. But when Callum walked in, drenched, smug, wearing that grey coat he thought made him look like some kind of tortured poet, I lost my nerve. He sat down, reached across the table, and tucked a wet strand of my hair behind my ear like he owned me. I flinched. And that's when James walked in. His face didn't contort. He didn't yell. That's what broke me. He just froze. His eyes met mine, then dropped to Callum's hand, still resting on the table between us. He looked tired. So tired. Like he'd already suspected, already grieved, and was now just seeing the body of the thing he tried not to believe in. He didn't say a word. Just turned around and walked out. I ran after him, leaving Callum mid-sentence. James, wait, please. My heels clicked on wet concrete as I caught up to him near the crosswalk. He turned slowly, rain soaking his curls, jaw clenched. How long? I hesitated. Don't lie, he said. His voice didn't crack. That made it worse. 6 months. He nodded once, like that number had solidified something for him. Was it serious? No. I looked down. It was stupid. Yeah, he said. It was. He walked away again. This time, I didn't follow. I moved out that weekend. We didn't scream. We didn't fight. He just asked me quietly to pack what I needed and go. He'd stay with a friend for a few days to give me space. The apartment felt hollow as I boxed my life. His hoodie still draped over the couch. A pair of his socks tangled with mine in the laundry. A handwritten grocery list in his neat block letters. Eggs, oat milk, your granola. That your gutted me. I cried in the shower. I cried in the Uber to my sister's place. I didn't cry in front of him. That was 2 months ago. At first, Callum thought it meant we could be together now. No more hiding, he said, a little too cheerfully for someone who just helped detonate a marriage. I didn't respond to his texts. The truth was, I didn't want him. I never really did. I wanted the attention. The escape. But the moment I saw James walk into that cafe, so human, so real, I realized what I had been trading for a fantasy. I started therapy the week after I left. Not to win James back, I didn't even reach out to him, but because I was terrified of who I'd become. I used to think of myself as kind, empathetic, trustworthy. But clearly, I wasn't that person. Or at least, not anymore. I started trying to rebuild from the rubble. Not for anyone else. Just so I could look in the mirror and not hate the woman staring back. 3 weeks ago, I saw James again. Not in person. In a photo. One of our mutual friends posted it. James at a brewery, arm slung casually around a woman I didn't recognize. Her smile was warm. She had this calm, grounded energy about her, even in a candid shot. James looked happy, lighter. I stared at that photo for a long time. And surprisingly, I didn't feel jealous. I felt relieved. Grateful, even. Because if he was smiling like that, it meant maybe I hadn't broken him completely. And maybe, just maybe, karma had arrived. Not as revenge, but as a reset. For both of us. The night I saw that photo of James with the new woman, I didn't sleep. I wasn't sad. Not exactly. It was more like my body was adjusting to a truth my heart already knew. I had lost him for good. And he was going to be okay. It forced me to look harder at myself. You know that saying, once a cheater, always a cheater? I used to roll my eyes at that. But now I understand what it really means. It's not about the act, it's about the lie you start telling yourself before the cheating even begins. That lie that says, you deserve more. You're not being appreciated. You can do this quietly, and no one has to know. But people do know. Even if they don't have proof, they feel it. I think James felt it before he ever saw it. I kept expecting some big, cinematic closure. Like he'd text me. Or show up at my door, furious or forgiving. Maybe we'd cry and say the things we didn't say that day outside the cafe. But no. He really meant it when he walked away. It was clean. And clean hurts in its own way. I saw a quote in a book my therapist lent me, something about how betrayal is not just about infidelity, but about robbing someone of their reality. I kept rereading that line. Robbing someone of their reality. That's what I did to James. He thought he was building a life with someone who had his back. Someone who'd never humiliate him behind his. And I took that from him, piece by piece, in the name of feeling alive. 2 weeks ago, I finally responded to one of Callum's messages. It had been 3 months since everything went down. He messaged late one night, still think about you. Wonder how you're doing. I was tempted to ignore it. But part of me knew I owed it to myself to say something clear. To stop the cycle I kept feeding. I wrote, you were a mistake. I'm not proud of what we did. Please don't contact me again. He replied with a passive-aggressive wow. Okay. And then a long paragraph about how I'd used him too, how he'd been just as invested. Maybe that was true. But it didn't change the fact that he had leaned into my marriage like it was an inconvenience for his story. He didn't get to claim the moral high ground now. I blocked his number that night. It felt good. Not dramatic. Just clean. Healing isn't linear. There were still bad nights. Like the morning I made coffee out of habit and realized I'd poured 2 cups. Or when I walked past a bookstore James and I used to visit on Sundays and had to sit down on a bench to catch my breath. But I also started to feel different. More still, if that makes sense. I wasn't chasing the next dopamine hit anymore. I wasn't checking James's social media like a stalker. I wasn't imagining alternate timelines where I didn't screw up. I was just living. I started cooking again. Not just frozen dinners or sad salads. I mean really cooking, baking sourdough, trying weird recipes from YouTube chefs, even making my own damn oat milk once. Don't recommend, it's messy. I started journaling. And volunteering on Saturdays at a local food pantry. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't post about it. I just showed up, week after week, trying to do something that wasn't about me for once. Then something unexpected happened. Last Friday, I was leaving the co-op when I heard someone say my name. Ally. I turned, and there he was. James. No warning. No slow pan-in music like a movie. Just my ex-husband, standing in front of the frozen spinach. He looked the same, but sharper somehow. Not colder, just firmer. More sure of himself. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes right away. Hey, I said, heart doing something weird in my chest. He nodded. Hey. We stood there for a moment. Awkward. He shifted his grocery bag from one hand to the other. You look good, I offered. He gave a polite smile. Thanks. You too. I wanted to say so much. Apologize again. Tell him I was changing. Tell him I wasn't sleeping around, that I'd cut ties, that I was in therapy, that I missed being someone he could trust. But I didn't. Because that moment wasn't about me. He cleared his throat. I saw your sister a few weeks back. She mentioned you're doing okay. I'm trying, I said. He nodded. Good. Another beat of silence. Then he glanced toward the door. Anyway, I should, yeah. Of course. He started walking away. Then paused, turned halfway. Take care of yourself, ally. And just like that, he was gone again. But this time, I didn't cry. I didn't break down in the car. I just stood there, letting the moments settle into me like soft rain. This morning, I got an email. It was from James. The subject line just said, "A few things I never said." My hands trembled opening it. I half expected hate. Or sarcasm. Or worse, total indifference. But instead, it was closure. He wrote about how the betrayal didn't happen all at once. How he'd felt the shift months before he caught me. The distance. The strange excuses. The change in my laugh. He said he didn't hate me. That he hoped I found whatever part of myself I'd been missing. That he was seeing someone now, her name was Elise, and that he felt peace for the first time in a long while. And then the last line. I loved you hard. And I still want good things for you. But I don't think I ever really knew you. That line shattered me in the gentlest way. Because it was true. I didn't respond to James's email. Not because I didn't have anything to say, believe me, I typed out drafts, full of emotion and apology and half-sincere hopes that maybe someday we could be friends. But I deleted them all. Because that email wasn't an invitation. It was a goodbye. A kind, necessary one. And for the first time since all of this started, I understood that the most respectful thing I could do was let him go completely. I won't sugarcoat what came next. There was a weird sort of grieving. Not just for James, but for the version of myself I'd always believed I was. I used to see myself as someone loyal. Someone who did the right thing, even when it was hard. A good person. But good is a label we give ourselves to avoid accountability. I was so afraid of being uncomfortable, of having hard conversations with James, of admitting I was dissatisfied, of facing the slow erosion of intimacy, that I made choices I now have to live with. And yet, weirdly, that honesty has been freeing. No more lying. No more pretending. I'm not the victim in this story. But I'm also not the villain in a movie. I'm just a human who made a mess, and now I'm sitting with it. Cleaning it up, inch by inch. The real karma didn't hit until later. Not the dramatic kind, no affairs exposed on social media, no confrontations in public places. Nothing flashy. It came when I ran into Callum again. I was at the hardware store, of all places, trying to pick out paint for the new apartment I'd just signed a lease on. Something clean. Light. A reset. I was debating between cloud linen and eggshell hush, when I heard that too familiar voice behind me. Ally. I turned. He looked rough. Less polished. Like the shine had worn off. A couple new lines on his face, a scuffed leather jacket that used to look expensive but now just looked worn out. He smiled like we shared some private joke. I heard you moved, he said. I nodded. Yeah. New place. He looked at the swatches in my hand. Painting it yourself? Yup. A pause. You look different, he said, tilting his head. Good. Healthier. Thanks. I didn't ask him how he was doing. I didn't care to know. And when he started to say something else, I cut in gently. Hey, Callum? I'm not trying to be rude. But there's nothing for us here. Whatever this was, whatever we were, it ended the moment James walked into that cafe. That chapter is done. Please don't reach out again. His face tightened, and for a second I saw the Callum I used to excuse, petty, insecure, too proud to handle rejection. But instead of pushing, he nodded. Sure. Got it. He walked away. And I swear, I felt lighter. Like a string I didn't even know I was holding on to finally snapped loose. So here I am now. It's been 8 months since the day James caught me. 6 months since I started therapy. 3 months since I stopped looking at his photos. I'm not dating. Not because I'm punishing myself, but because, for the first time, I don't want to rush into something to feel better. I want to be better first. I spend more time alone now. At first, it felt like punishment. But it's become something else, peaceful. Sometimes I take walks without my phone, just to notice things. Trees starting to bloom. Kids chasing each other. Old couples holding hands. Last week, I passed a park bench where James once told me he loved me for the first time. And I didn't cry. I smiled. Because loving someone, even when it ends, doesn't have to be a regret. The regret is in what I did after that love. But I've forgiven myself for the first time in a long time. Not because I deserve it, but because healing demands honesty, and honesty demands grace. James and I will never get back together. I know that now. And I think that's the way it's supposed to be. He has his own story to live now, his own healing, his new relationship, his quiet peace. And I finally have mine. The real karma? It's not the dramatic fallout. It's living in the silence that comes after you've hurt someone good, and realizing that nothing you do will fix it. That the best you can hope for is to become someone who never does that again. I'm not chasing redemption anymore. Just clarity. And maybe someday, a kind of self-worth that isn't based on anyone else's reflection. So yeah, call it karma if you want. But I call it growing up.